Revenge with Anjo.
The sharp crack of Celeste's hand meeting Zara's cheek sliced through the air like lightning. For a moment, the world tilted. The glittering dinner table fell silent. Forks paused midair, glasses trembled in frozen hands, and every eye fixed on the two sisters. Zara's face burned as the sting spread, her breath catching somewhere between shock and fury. Across from her, Celeste stood tall, her face flushed with satisfaction. "Get out of my house, Zara," she hissed, her voice cool and deliberate. When she shoved Zara's shoulder, the chair nearly toppled backward. The chandelier above them blazed too bright, its crystals scattering light across a room that suddenly felt suffocating. Their father muttered something under his breath. Their mother stared into her wine glass, pretending not to see. And in that heavy silence, only one voice dared to break through, her brother's whisper, cruel and careless. She deserved it. Zara didn't move. Her cheek throbbed, but her mind was startlingly clear. She looked around the dining room, the imported marble floors, the designer table, the delicate floral arrangements. She had chosen every element of this place, long before Celeste and Adrien took credit for it. Her pulse steadied. Celeste, still standing over her, smoothed the sleeve of her silk dress as though she'd brushed off dirt instead of striking her sister. "You've always been poor," Celeste sneered. "You don't belong here." The words floated like venom, familiar and exhausting. Zara felt that familiar constriction in her chest, the same one she'd endured at every family dinner. But this time, she didn't shrink. She reached subtly for the leather portfolio resting beside her chair, the one that contained everything they didn't know. She exhaled slowly. Tonight, their story about poor, desperate Zara was about to end. For 3 years, she had allowed their fiction to thrive. They whispered that she couldn't keep a job, that she rented a tiny apartment, that her company was a failed dream. They pitted her in public and mocked her in private. But while they flaunted borrowed luxury, Zara had been quietly building something real, an investment firm specializing in distressed commercial properties. While Celeste curated her social media perfection, Zara had been securing deeds and signatures. She had learned patience. But patience had its limit, and it ended the moment Celeste's palm struck her face. Zara straightened her chair and smiled faintly. "Funny," she said softly, "I'm the only one at this table who actually paid for this dinner." The room fell still, uncertain if she was joking. Then, laughter erupted. Her cousin Noah leaned forward with a smirk. "What did you do, Zara? Use coupons again?" Laughter rippled across the table like cruel music. Celeste slammed her wine glass down, red liquid spilling over the linen. "Stop embarrassing yourself," she snapped. "You can't even pay rent, and you want to act important here?" The cut was sharp and practiced. Zara had heard variations of it her whole life. But this time, she didn't let it draw blood. She simply observed them. These people who'd built their pride on illusion. Her calmness unsettled them. Even her father glanced up uncertain. "You really don't know, do you?" she said quietly, turning her attention to Celeste. "Maybe you should check who actually owns this house." Celeste's smirk faltered. "What are you talking about?" she demanded. Her tone trembled, barely noticeable, but enough for Zara to recognize it. The first crack in her sister's perfect armor. Adrien shifted in his seat, his hand tightening around his napkin. Their mother looked up for the first time, confusion replacing her apathy. "Zara," her father said gruffly, "enough of your games." But she wasn't playing. Zara reached for her bag with unhurried precision. Her fingers brushed the smooth edge of the folded document inside, the one that would shatter their illusions. She looked straight at Adrien, who was already sweating. His reaction was all the confirmation she needed. "You should probably read before you speak," she said. Adrien stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "She's lying," he blurted. "Don't listen to her, Celeste. She's jealous. That's all she's ever been." His panic hung thick in the air. Zara's lips curved into a small, patient smile. "If I were lying, you wouldn't look so afraid." She set the document on the table, the crisp paper landing with finality. The grandfather clock ticked loudly from the foyer, counting down the last seconds of their false reality. No one moved. Celeste stared at the envelope as if it might explode. Finally, their father reached for it, unfolding it with trembling hands. His eyes scanned the first line, and his expression changed completely. "Celeste," he murmured, voice drained of color. "Why is Zara's name on this deed?" Celeste's head jerked up.
What?
"That's not." She grabbed the paper, reading frantically. "This is fake. She forged this." But Adrian's silence screamed the truth. His head bowed into his hands, shoulders shaking. Zara watched quietly as the truth rippled across the room. The same house Celeste had bragged about, remodeled, and called her forever home. Half of it belonged to Zara. 3 years ago, when Adrian's finances were crumbling, she had quietly stepped in. She provided the down payment. She had saved them. And in return, they erased her. "I was patient," Zara said evenly, her voice calm despite the tremor in Celeste's. "I let you enjoy your little fantasy. But tonight, when you struck me and told me to get out of my own home, I decided I'd had enough." Celeste's lips quivered. "You're lying," she said again, but the conviction was gone. "You don't have money. You've never had money." Zara leaned forward, her eyes locking with hers. "That's what you all wanted to believe," she said softly. "While you laughed at me, I was working. While you called me poor, I was investing. And while you were drowning in credit, I was building everything you think you own." The silence that followed was suffocating. Even Noah stopped smiling. Their mother's hand trembled as she set down her fork. Ethan looked between his sisters, speechless for once. Celeste stared at the paper like it might rewrite itself. "This doesn't change anything," Adrian said suddenly, his voice rising with desperation. "We live here. Not her. She can't take this house." Zara's eyes flicked to him, amused. "You sure about that?" His face twisted in panic. "You don't know what you're doing, Zara," he said, but she could see the terror blooming behind his eyes. He wasn't afraid of losing the house, he was afraid of what else she knew. Adrian's composure broke. He slammed his palms against the table, rattling the silverware. "You all think she's innocent? You think she's some hero?" he shouted. "Fine. Let's tell the truth then." Celeste's face drained of color. "Adrian, don't." But he was past reason. "You want to know why we needed Zara's help?" "Why I beg her," he said, voice shaking. "Because we were drowning in debt. Celeste maxed out every card trying to look rich, and he hesitated, swallowing hard. "I gambled the rest." Gasps filled the air. Celeste's hand flew to her mouth. Their father's chair creaked as he sat back, stunned. Zara didn't gloat.
She didn't need to.
The truth was louder than any victory cry. Celeste lunged toward him, her voice cracking. "Stop it. You're ruining everything." Adrian ignored her, his words spilling faster. "Zara's not poor. She's the only reason we're still standing. She built her business while we borrowed, lied, and pretended." He gestured wildly toward her. "If it weren't for her, we'd be in a rented apartment right now." The admission hit the table like an earthquake. Zara simply folded her hands in her lap, eyes calm. Celeste's tears streaked through her makeup. "You knew all this time," she whispered, trembling. "You let us think you were nothing." "I didn't correct you," Zara replied, "because you wanted me to be nothing. It made you feel important." Their father stood abruptly, face flushed. "Enough of this circus," he snapped. "If you had all this success, Zara, why didn't you tell us? Why keep it a secret?" She met his gaze evenly. "Because you never asked," she said. "You only ever looked for proof I'd failed." Her mother looked away, shame shadowing her eyes. The tension at the table was unbearable. Celeste's shoulders shook with silent sobs while Adrian sat slumped, defeated. Zara rose slowly from her chair, the portfolio still in her hand. "You think that paper was the worst of it," she said softly. "You haven't seen anything yet." Every head turned toward her. "What are you talking about?" Ethan asked. Zara reached into her bag once more and pulled out another envelope. She placed it gently beside Celeste's untouched plate. "This," she said, "is why you should have never tried to humiliate me tonight." Celeste's trembling hands tore it open. As she read, her lips parted in horror. "No," she whispered. "No, this can't be." Her father grabbed the papers next, eyes scanning quickly. This says you signed over your share," he said, voice faltering. "Celeste, Adrian, she owns everything." The heir left the room. Zara simply watched as realization dawned. Adrian's voice broke first. "We had no choice," he mumbled, staring at the table. "We couldn't pay her back. We signed the papers to clear the debt." Celeste turned on him, her voice rising to a shriek. "You didn't tell me." "I tried," he whispered. "You never listened." Zara stood quietly, the storm of their argument swirling around her. For years, she had been their scapegoat, the failure, the joke. Now she was the owner of everything they valued. "You told me to leave your home," she said finally, her voice even. "But the truth is, Celeste, you've been living in mine." Celeste's knees buckled as she sank into her chair. "Please," she whispered. "You can't do this." Zara tilted her head slightly. "I can. And I already have." Their father's face hardened. "You've made your point," he said, anger trembling beneath the surface. "No," Zara replied. "You've all made mine. You spent years convincing yourselves I was nothing. Now you get to live with the truth." She picked up her bag, her movements deliberate, graceful. "I'm not here to humiliate you, Celeste. I'm here to reclaim what's mine." The weight of her words settled like dust in the air. Celeste covered her face with trembling hands. Adrian stared blankly ahead. Their mother whispered prayers under her breath. Zara walked toward the doorway, the sound of her heels echoing softly against the marble. She paused and turned, her voice calm and steady. "Enjoy the dinner," she said. "But remember, this isn't your home anymore. It's mine, and I decide who stays." Then she left the room, closing the heavy oak door behind her with quiet finality. Outside, the evening air was cool against her skin. She stood for a moment on the front steps, gazing up at the house, the symbol of her family's arrogance and her own silent endurance. For years, she'd been the shadow at the table, the punchline in their conversations. Tonight, she had reclaimed not only her name but her power. She smiled faintly before walking to her car. Inside, her phone buzzed. It was a message from her assistant. "The transfer documents are finalized." Zara exhaled, feeling lighter than she had in years. It was over. 3 months later, Zara sat in her office overlooking the city skyline. The nameplate on her desk read Zara Ellis, CEO, Horizon Realty Group. She still remembered that night vividly. The sting of Celeste's slap, the hush, the faces that once looked down on her. Her company had since expanded into 2 more states. She now employed over 40 people. Her success wasn't revenge, it was proof. Proof that dignity could be rebuilt from ruin, that silence could become strategy. The woman they dismissed as insignificant had built an empire in secret.
Her phone rang.
It was her father. For a long moment, she hesitated before answering. "Zara," his voice came through, quieter than she'd ever heard it. "I'm sorry. We were wrong about you." She didn't say anything at first. Then softly, "I know." He cleared his throat. "Celeste and Adrian moved out last week. They're trying to start over." "I hope they do," she replied. "But I won't forget what they did." A pause. "Nor should you," he said. "But don't carry it forever." After the call, Zara leaned back in her chair, staring out at the skyline glowing under the evening sun. Her reflection merged with the city lights, calm, composed, unbroken. The betrayal had shaped her, but it no longer defined her. She was finally free of their voices. The portfolio that once carried proof of her worth now sat closed in a drawer. She didn't need evidence anymore. The world already knew who she was. A week later, Zara received a call from her brother Ethan. For a moment, she almost ignored it. Old habits of distance still lingered, but something in her gut told her to answer. "Hey," he began awkwardly, his voice softer than usual. "I've been meaning to call. I was wrong, Zara. About everything." Zara leaned against her office window. That's a first, she teased lightly. Ethan chuckled, the tension easing a little. You know, Mom's still trying to process it all. Dad's pretending nothing happened. And Celeste, he hesitated. She's not doing great. I didn't want to destroy her, Zara said quietly. I just wanted the truth out. I know, he replied. And maybe now it's what we all needed. They started meeting for coffee every Thursday. At first, the conversations were strained, small talk about weather and work, but slowly, something real began to rebuild. Ethan listened for once. He asked about her business, about her plans, even about her life outside work. One afternoon, he said, You know, when Celeste slapped you that night, I wanted to stop her. But I didn't. Zara looked at him, surprised by the admission.
Why? He sighed.
Because I was afraid. Afraid of being the next one they turned on. Zara smiled sadly. I get it. Fear makes people cruel. Maybe, Ethan said softly. But courage fixes what fear breaks. Their mother called a few weeks later, her voice hesitant. Zara, I've been thinking, maybe we could have dinner sometime. Just us girls. Zara paused. I'd like that, she said, though her heart fluttered with caution. When the evening came, her mother arrived wearing the same pearl earrings she'd worn the night of the confrontation. The restaurant was quiet, lit by amber lamps. For a while, they sat in silence, both unsure how to begin. Finally, her mother spoke, her voice trembling. I watched it happen that night, and I did nothing. I should have stopped her. Zara looked up, tears prickling her eyes. You don't have to explain, Mom. You've been quiet your whole life. Her mother nodded slowly. Maybe it's time I stop. The dinner became the first of many.
They
spoke about her late father's mistakes, about Celeste's pride, about Zara's resilience. For the first time in years, they spoke as equals. You always had something they didn't, her mother said one night. You had grit. You didn't inherit comfort. You built it. Zara smiled faintly. Maybe that's why they resented me. Maybe, her mother agreed. But it's also why you survived. By the end of dinner, her mother reached across the table and squeezed her hand. You turned pain into power. That's something worth being proud of. Zara exhaled deeply. For years she'd longed to hear that single sentence, and now it felt like forgiveness. 2 months later, Zara stood in front of the house that once represented everything she hated about her family, the arrogance, the pretense, the control. The garden was overgrown now, the air still. A for sale sign stood firmly on the lawn, her name printed neatly on the bottom. She'd already accepted an offer from a young couple starting their first business. As she unlocked the door one final time, she wandered through the empty rooms. Her footsteps echoed softly, bouncing off the walls that had once held so much tension. Goodbye, she whispered, running her hand along the marble banisters she'd helped design. You taught me everything I needed to know about strength. In the kitchen, she found a single forgotten photograph tucked behind a drawer, one of the family smiling before things turned bitter. Celeste, radiant and proud. Ethan, awkward and lanky. Zara, still hopeful. For a moment, her throat tightened. She didn't hate them anymore. She pitied them, for needing to tear her down just to feel tall. She slipped the photo into her bag, not out of nostalgia, but as a quiet reminder that love, even when broken, had once existed here. It was time to let go. She walked out without looking back. The following morning, Zara met with her legal team to finalize the sale. As she signed the last document, she smiled faintly. New beginnings, she murmured. Her assistant, Grace, grinned. You're officially free of that house. Not just the house, Zara replied. Everything that came with it. She left the office and drove to a lakeside cafe, one she discovered during her early investment days. The breeze was gentle, the water glinting gold under the afternoon sun. For the first time in years, peace felt real, not borrowed, not conditional. Hers. That evening, her phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Thank you for not destroying us completely. Celeste. Zara stared at the message for a while, her emotions tangled. She typed slowly. It was never about destruction. It was about truth. She pressed send and set the phone down, watching the horizon fade into dusk. Somewhere deep down, she hoped Celeste would find her own redemption, away from the illusions that had consumed her. Some wounds, Zara realized, didn't need revenge. They just needed light. Months passed, and life found rhythm again. Horizon Realty thrived, expanding across states. Zara's story became one of quiet triumph, never loud, never boastful. When new clients asked about her motivation, she always smiled and said, "Family teaches you everything, especially what not to become." Her team respected her not just as a leader, but as a survivor of something invisible. She didn't correct them when they called her the woman who built her empire from ashes. It was true enough. On a crisp autumn evening, Zara returned to the city's edge where everything had begun. Standing under the fading orange sky, she thought about the slap, the laughter, the betrayal, and how they had all shaped her into who she was now. The humiliation had once been her breaking point, but it had become her rebirth. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "They tried to bury me, but I was the seed." With that, she turned away, her silhouette framed against the skyline, strong, composed, and entirely free. If you value stories of respect, dignity, and justice, please subscribe. It means more than you know, and it lets me keep sharing the lessons life has carved into me.